All right, thanks to Mr. Pierre for informing us about an aspect of that that we hadn't really considered before. And right now, I'm going to take a visit with one of my friends who's been a neighbor for many years, and he really is one of the foremost comic book writers. In the Bronx, he's an innovator and a creator. He's an author, a writing coach, a teacher, an educator, comic book creator. My pleasure to say hello once again to my buddy Alex Simmons. Nice to have you back on the Bronx Buzz.
Hey there, how you doing there, Gary? Always
We're,
good to
we're,
see you.
we're doing great, and we're doing even better because you're with us.
Did
Let's
wait a
just
minute, did your costume person talk to my costume person? Because we're both in black.
Yeah, that's well, we were trying to celebrate the commemoration of the incredible comic book work you've done. Let's talk about Blackjack and the creation of it. And now that we're moving to kind of a new era for our favorite
Yes,
comic
we're
book
going from
hero.
retro to digital. Yeah.
Talk about the history of it. When did you create this
Oh
character?
my goodness.
It's a historical character of epic proportions. Let's
Well,
go.
okay,
What do you
so
got?
so first off, Blackjack is a story, an adventure story about an African American soldier of fortune in the 1930s. And I created it back in the 1980s. No, I was not alive in the 1930s, but I
But you
created it
were
back.
alive in the '80s, let's
Yes,
be
I was.
clear.
Yes, there's proof of that. I did it because, for one, as a black man growing up, as a child growing up, watching television and going to movies and things, black characters, especially black men, were 99% of the time portrayed either as domestics, servants, butlers, that sort of thing, or we were seen in any of the Tarzan movies running around being afraid of the animals, being afraid of the white guy in a
Oh,
loincloth,
right,
but
right, right,
no
right.
heroic figures, none. And as a kid, we had Batman, we had cowboys, we had all these characters that you were supposed to look up to as heroic figures. And of course, as a kid, I wanted to be that. I wanted to have adventures and save lives and all that kind of stuff. But again, no one looked like me doing that. And
You
so
didn't
by the
see you
no,
wonder, I remember wearing a Superman cape and all that, but and I guess it was easier for me to see myself in there.
absolutely.
You didn't quite see yourself in
I
that.
didn't absolutely did not see
That's it.
anything like
Yeah.
that until maybe the 60s, late 60s, right? When things started to happen and change because of the civil rights movement. But again, just understanding that a good portion of my childhood and my teen years, zip. So when I became a professional writer and a performer, one of the things I tried to do was create characters that took on more of a representation, a better representation of Black people, and in the various jobs and career paths and circumstances that we'd experienced throughout the decades. And so when I got to create this character, I wanted to create a heroic figure. I wanted to do him in the past because, again, one of the things that had happened over the years was I'd learned all the things Black people had done in the past. Right,
Ah.
we had been soldiers in two wars, right? In particular, World War One and World War Two, and yet there was almost no remarks about it whatsoever until. And so I started to look at the explorers, the inventors, the scientists, and things that that had been of color, and I started to say, there's got to be a way to start bringing some of that information forward. And I did it by doing a storyline, an adventure storyline, so that played to the kid in me,
Mhm.
but an adventure storyline where he would either meet some of these characters or I could at least reference some of these characters. And not just blacks or Africans or African Americans, but also Middle Eastern, Asian, and so because again, a lot of the material that had been done in the 30s, 40s, and 50s usually took cultures and reduced them to stereotypes. We had the Chinese characters were either evil or domestics. Spanish characters, and usually the only ones you saw were Mexicans, were either evil or poor. It was like it was very simplistic stereotypes that were done.
And so you created this character, and how prolific were you in developing it and turning it out? I mean,
Initially,
was it like a monthly, a weekly
well,
when
no,
it
it was
started?
it was not because it was just me doing the writing, and then I had to bring in artists and people like that. So I didn't have a huge staff. So it was predominantly me doing the writing, Joe Bennett, who's a Brazilian artist, doing the illustrations, and we did it like I think I did. We did the first three issues in 4 months, four and a half months. With
And how did it work? Were young people, receptive to it? Did you feel
oh,
like it
well,
had the
it was
effect you
tremendous.
wanted to have it?
It was tremendous in that I did it out of faith. When we got it out there, we got a lot of, from distributors and things like that, we got a lot of pushback, except from Diamond and a couple of the larger ones. But from the smaller ones, we got pushback. Oh, this doesn't have a market where we sell. This won't fly where we sell. This won't go over.
Ay,
And it
ay,
was the
ay, ay,
exact
ay.
opposite. It was the exact opposite. We were getting fan mail from Europe, from Mexico, from obvious points in the United States.
So as you've developed your own skills, as a writer, as a teacher, I mean, you teach all kinds of different aspects of, what goes into comic books. I mean, you and I have talked about you traveling literally the world to talk about,
Yeah.
comic books and
Comics
teach
and creative writing and all of that, yeah.
exactly. So, as this has developed, it was time at some point maybe to do something different with it,
Well,
where expanding the
we did a
concept?
number of comics and graphic novels of this character, and then we went to short stories and, novellas, and that was I did some writing with my partner, my buddy, Chris Ryan, and actually it's now floating around LA, on the verge of beginning to commence to start to eventually, we hope, very soon, find some life there as well in another media form. And meanwhile, I have decided, some months ago, I decided that the audiobook world would be another good place for this, because
Uh-huh,
some of the stories, yes, some of the stories are graphic novels rather, but
right.
others are short stories and novellas, and those can be um, recorded and presented as
A
audiobooks. So we
as
took
as
one of the
a
books to do
well, let
that.
me ask you this, as a creator, you visualized this character for comic books, and
Hmm.
you created, each scene, was a different image,
Like making a film.
etcetera.
Yeah,
That's
right.
right. And what was it like to then say, "Well, wait a minute, I'm cutting out the visual, and now it's only gonna be audio." Did you like the stories? Was it harder to tell the stories? Was it
No,
easier?
it was not harder, it was different. I'd been a writer of short stories and novels and things like that prior to doing comics. So to me, it was just going back to a different medium or shifting to another medium. I also do screenplays, so I mean, I can write a screenplay, I can write a comic book, I can write a novel or short story. It's just deciding, okay, where am I this week,
Right.
and adjusting your thinking, and so that your methodology fits that particular
Do
media.
is this, audiobook, now designed for people to look at the visuals while they're doing it, or is it
No,
one of
no,
these
it's
like a
just straight.
podcast you can sit on the
It's
subway and
Yeah,
just
you drive in your
wow.
car, sit with your earbuds in, that sort of thing, and enjoy some adventures. And this is not the first one, actually. I did one a few years back as a Halloween tribute. I took one of the short stories where he deals with the supernatural, and I'd done an audiobook reading of that. So this is now the first time I am fully coming out with a full-on story to do and present to the marketplace as an
What
audiobook.
one story to start, or do you, in your mind, have you're ready to roll them
Two
out,
stories,
or
2 stories,
2 stories?
2 stories to
And
start, yeah.
when will it be available? I
It
thought it was
will
October 15th, right?
Yes, it's this coming weekend.
Right.
It'll be
We
on the
should say
market.
we're recording this before that,
That's right.
so it
Oh,
will
that's
air
true. Yes, that's true.
actually after it, but, let's just be clear. And
Yes.
then if people say, "Well, wait a minute, I'd like to hear" first of all, do you do the narration? You have a good
Yes,
voice.
yes.
Wow.
I've done voiceover work for years, so yes, I figured, no,
Wow.
let me keep it simple. It's not about ego, it's about, removing obstructions so I can get things done.
Yeah, and also if listen, there's nothing wrong with hiring an actor or hiring somebody's
No.
voice, but you know what you want to put out. Just out of curiosity, because people listen to podcasts and all that. How long? I mean, is it long? Can you do it in one sitting? Are
It
there
depends on the
chapters?
it depends on the person. There are chapters, and it's a short story. It's one of two stories it's a book that we did called Trial by Fire, Trial by Ice, and the Trial by Fire takes place around the 1936 Olympics in Germany, and Trial by Ice takes place in Russia. Literally, story wise, a few weeks after the first story. So it's two stories in one in the book, and the printed book is available on Amazon. So now the audio book will be available that way. But we're going to start out with on the Blackjack website first,
You
just to
know,
sort of roll it out.
I want to ask you this because I have felt when we've had so many conversations on the air and off the air about the work that you do and creating Blackjack to start, and you have articulated the reasons for it. Are you somewhat thinking to yourself, "Gee whiz, with the new superheroes that are in the movies now of black figures," you're saying, "Hey, I did that all the way back." I mean, this is really kind of the descendant, right, to
Well,
the
yeah,
modern movies.
it's. I don't know that I can say it that way because,
Oh, take the credit, Alex.
well, no, yeah, I take credit where it's definitely due.
Oh,
But
okay, fair
what
enough.
I will say here is that there's a long history of artists, black and white, trying to get black characters in the comic books, and it started in the '60s. And literally, well, actually, it started before that. But I'm just saying, in terms of the comic book era with Marvel and DC, it's that started in the '60s. And I'm just happy to be a part of that vanguard and that crusade, if you will. And yes, I can honestly say, because I've been told this, that there are a number of writers and artists currently doing black hero figures in comics who were inspired by the work I did with Blackjack.
Okay,
All right,
listen,
so I
you
can
know
say
me,
that. But yeah,
you're in my camp, and I'm gonna give you the credit.
thank
And
you.
do you at this point? I mean, I realize you're focused on the audiobook and maybe audiobooks, and maybe there will be more at some point. Do you think of the other next steps, or is it really keep doing what you're doing,
Well,
teaching
like I
kids,
said,
using comic books to expand their minds and do all the great things that it can do for a young person?
I like to look at my life this way. I like to look at the things that I can actually affect. Like I said, right
Mm.
now Blackjack's under consideration for Los Angeles and animation and all that. And I can't do anything more to make that happen other than what I've done and the people that are working on that. Now, if we get a deal, we get a deal. But I can turn out these stories myself. I can work with people like Chris Ryan and others to turn out more Blackjack stories as printed books and graphic novels and also as audiobooks. So yes, that is what I can control. Subsequently, that is a part of what I will do. I also teach screenwriting at the New York Film Academy. And then, as you said, I globetrot both physically and virtually to teach creative writing and creative arts to people in different countries and at different age ranges.
What
That's
what
something I can do.
what you have done, and again, we've talked about this. In fact, I remember we did an edition of Bronx Talk when we brought the kids in to draw and
Yeah, that's
create. I
right.
remember that
Yeah,
several years ago. But what you have done is use this art form and used it to for the best reasons to expand kids' minds, let them be creative in and of themselves, let them write their own stories,
exactly.
and
And let them represent themselves too. I mean, sometimes we're not
just like you did.
seeing the proper representation of
Got it.
our culture, our race, whatever. So, hey, do it yourself.
We got to get running. My buddy Alex Simmons, find him at simmonshereandnow.com. And we appreciate your time. We appreciate your
Thank you.
work.
Thank you for
And
having me here.
I would tell you to keep going. You will. You
Yes,
don't even need me to
absolutely.
say
And you
that.
do likewise.
All right. All right, that should do it for the Bronx Buzz. Thanks so much to Alex. He's just great, and he's always producing stuff that means something. Also, in the first segment, thanks to Sam Pierre for giving us an unusual point of view about congestion pricing. And you know what happens next? That's right. We'll see you next week. Good night.